Welcome to Soul Seeker. I'm Sam Kabert, and I'll be your guide on this journey. I started the show back in 2019, chasing answers like many of us do. But what I've come to understand is this: it's not the seeking that fulfills us. It's what we find in the quiet stillness beneath the search. When we stop chasing and learn to be with what is, we access a deeper wisdom. One that leads not to more doing, but to ease, grace, joy, and true fulfillment. My mission with this podcast is to help high performers just like yourself to regulate your nervous system, reprogram subconscious patterns, and embody emotional freedom so you can lead with clarity, resilience, and alignment. Welcome to Soul Seeker. Let's grow. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seeker Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Sam Kabert, and in this episode, we're going to talk about sustainable energy. Honestly, there's a supplement that I've been using the past couple of months that has just changed the game for me. So if you're someone who is a big coffee drinker, or let's say you're really much into nootropics or biohacking or anything like that at all, or, actually, now that I think about it, if you're kind of nerdy like me and you like the science, any of those things, you're going to love this podcast. I'm speaking with Jeff Boyd, and he is the founder of MTE, More Than Energy. It's this amazing new nootropic on the market that's utilizing a bunch of things that you might not be familiar with. One is saffron. You might have heard about saffron. It helps with mood and sleep support. Another is GABA. I've been using GABA off and on when I need to every now and then. It's good for sleep and a calm mood. But the big ingredient is paraxanthine, and you likely haven't heard of paraxanthine. And Jeff is going to talk about each and every one of these 8+, I think it's 10 ingredients. They're amazing, just amazing ingredients that have zero caffeine. It's a nootropic, brand new on the market. I love it so much. You're going to hear all about it. And if by the end of the episode you want to try it out for yourself, we have a special discount code. You can go to the link with the show notes to grab that discount code. And just as a reminder, if you're new to the Soul Seeker show and you haven't subscribed yet or left a rating and review, please do so because it helps the show grow. Other than that, enjoy this episode with Jeff Boyd. All right, here we are again, back again for another episode of the Soul Seeker Podcast, episode 292, inching ever closer to 300. We're going to do as we always do in this pod. Jeff, welcome to the show. And before we get started, we're going to ground with 3 simple breaths. So for all of you out there in listening land, you can always breathe with us, just being mindful of your surroundings and making sure to not close your eyes if you're driving or doing anything like that. But Jeff, for yourself, for me, and for all of you listening that are in a space to start to slow down, I invite you to take a seat, just shutting down the eyes, feeling your feet on the floor, sitting straight up, and through your nose, slowly inhaling all the way up. Sipping in a bit more air at the top. And a big sigh, let it go, let it go. Another slow nourishing inhale, letting the belly and the back body expand and bringing that breath all the way up. Sipping in a bit more air at the top. And sighing it out. One last one, inhaling up, sipping in a bit more, slight pause, and exhale, let it go. And here we are, flickering the eyes back open. Jeff, welcome to the Soul Seeker Show.
Thank you. Love it. I feel
Yeah.
great.
Awesome. 3 simple breaths. That's all it ever really takes, really, if we can just do that on a more ongoing basis. So I came across your new line. I think you started this company, More Than Energy, about 3 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I came across it through Josh Trent, Wellness and Force Wisdom podcast. Amazing dude. And I've been working with your supplement now, more in energy, I don't know, maybe 3 months, give or take. And
Mhm.
I love this stuff. Tell us a little bit about what it is and the origin story, and then we're going to just unpack all of it from there. Sound good?
Awesome, man. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. This is super stoked. Love that. Um, it was Josh was a catalyst too. I'm a big fan of Josh and Liv. We're neighbors, so that's
Cool.
yeah, even more cool. So yeah, MTE stands for More Than Energy. We started about 3 years ago. Spent a couple years developing, researching, and came to market with what is now our product just over a year ago, like a year and a week. So it's basically our birthday, if you will.
Nice.
And the catalyst of this was we felt like the world has changed especially in the last 25 years, where we're more stressed, we're more overstimulated, the whole thing, but energy really has not evolved, and it's remained very static. And we felt like it needed to evolve, and it needed to be something that was more than just stimulation. It also needs to be focus. It also needs to be recovery at night, gut health, boosted mood. Like all these things contribute to not only being energized, maximizing that energy, but also foundationally being able to produce your own energy. So, we didn't want to just feel energized. We wanted to feel great. And in looking around, there was nothing out there that did this. There was a lot of stimulation, and there's some certain supplements that could help you in other ways, but nothing married the two. And that was really important to us. Is we wanted to do something that could help us foundationally thrive and be the best. So that's what we put together. And like I said, it took us a couple of years, a lot of trial and error. It actually started as a liquid form. We dabbled in that, and obviously now we're in the powder, and couldn't be happier about it. The response we're getting has been overwhelming.
And you don't have a background in like products like this, do you?
No, I've always been into fitness and supplementing for as long as I can remember. But no, I studied finance. I had a shipping company for nearly 20 years. Operated all over the world, sold that in 2019, and sort of had, the opportunity to, I sat down, and, obviously COVID sort of contributed to that as well. But I had the chance to really sit down and figure out, okay, I don't have to rush into what's next. Like, let's be contemplative about it. Let's be thoughtful. And I always wanted to help people be well. And, I always wanted to, do something for the greater good, right? Like, anecdotally, somebody at that time was like, hey, do you want to invest in this tequila brand? This is back 5 years ago. Like, everybody had tequila, and it was sort of attractive in that regard. And I just thought, I like tequila. I don't have anything against tequila, but it's not helping people be well. It's not helping people thrive. Like, I want to do the opposite of that, right? Yeah. So we sat down and just started thinking, what can we do? And we just kept coming back to, there's a lot of stuff out there that doesn't work. There's a lot of people out there that don't have the time or ability to sift through all of the options. And a lot of things are stuck in the 90s, if you will. And the world has changed. I sound like, one of those old, like, stay off my lawn guys. No. But the world really, there was no 24-hour news cycle. There were certainly no phones, no social media. Sleep was not looked at as, sort of a weakness. I think we're coming around as a society on that now to some degree, but for years, it was like a badge of honor to go in and declare how little you slept, right? Which is just insane. So, we like putting this together was like the obvious next step. And so I got into supplements, and then that was, I'm here to tell you, that was a learning experience. I feel like I got a whole new degree in something totally different, which is super cool. It's been awesome. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. How do you even start with that? Not even speaking about like, the packaging or working with the FDA, anything like that. Just starting with the ingredients,
Yeah.
like where'd you start to be like to find out which of the ingredients you really want to start working with?
What's funny is we put together a team, Ayurvedic formulators, biochemists, nutritionists, doctors, and just sort of started kicking around our ideas with them. And we started with what we wanted it to do, right? That was, and then, there you would look and say, okay, you want something that can boost mood. Okay, well, here are a couple of the big players that do that, right? So you want energy. The obvious one is caffeine, but you just told me 5 minutes ago you also want to reduce stress response and boost recovery at night and sleep. That usually doesn't go hand in hand with caffeine. So like having and sort of having this whole picture of what we wanted, and we knew it's evolved quite a bit, and there's been some adaptations, but we knew early on that we did want to boost focus, energy, mood, and recovery at night. What we've sort of evolved in over time is the gut health and how important that is. And it's always been important to me individually, but the opportunity to get it into the formula was too good to pass up. So once we started having those conversations, you just start, and then you start looking at ingredients and you start saying, okay, what is the best? I mean, that's what we started with. And one of our formulators, one of the world's preeminent Ayurvedic formulators, said to us towards the end of the process, he's like, it's really been interesting and fun doing this with you guys, because most formulas don't start with these conversations. Most of them are like, who's our target audience? What's our budget? Right. And like, we never talked about budget. We were like, one of our key ingredients is saffron. I mean, if we talked about budget, we picked the wrong ingredient. It's so expensive, but it's also so powerful. So we just started, we tried to put together an all-star cast, and then just let the chips fall where they may in terms of pricing and having them work together. And, the biggest challenge, I think, is when you do that is flavor. You have some things that, it's like you put enough colors together and all of a sudden you just have like this ugly brown, right? And so it's like we had to kind of figure out, how are we going to flavor this thing without sacrificing what's important to us? I mean, I didn't want it to be a sugar bomb. I didn't want to use fake sugar. Those were two very important things to me. And so, figuring out how to mask certain flavors, or, when ashwagandha, no one would ever do this, of course, but you go take a bite of an ashwagandha root, it doesn't taste great. It's like,
imagine,
right? Like spirulina, on it goes. These things are in isolation, don't taste great. So figuring out, and what's funny is, full circle, one of the things that really helped the flavor profile was going back to nature and just using Himalayan salt. So it's been, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny hearing you mention that in terms of the flavor profile, because I have a good friend, shout out Rudy Smith. He's got something that he calls man dust, and it's got so many different ingredients in it, like so much, but that stuff is gnarly. Rudy, I love you, and I drink the man dust all the time, but like, you gotta prepare yourself for that. It reminds me of ayahuasca journeys, seriously, because it's pretty gnarly. That said, though, let's talk about your ingredients. I got this little handy dandy card right in front of me with your ingredient list, but walk us through these ingredients. A few of them are totally new to me, like paraxanthine. Marketed it as Infinity or Efinity, is it?
Infinity, yeah.
Infinity. I've seen that a few things this year, but before this year, I'd never seen that before. And then here's another one that seems to be new for me, at least. Eleuthero, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Eleuthero. That's Siberian ginseng.
So walk us through some of these all-stars that we wouldn't normally see in something like this.
Cool. Yeah, well, I mean, man, this is a rabbit hole. This could go on for hours. I love this stuff. But
perfect.
I think the best place to start is having, we wanted it to be a sort of a pyramid, right? Where, you had the tip of the spear and then the support at the bottom. And so that for us was adaptogens, nootropics, and superfoods, right? We sort of wanted all three. And so the nootropic that you'd mentioned, paraxanthine, that's a derivative of caffeine. So the formula is caffeine free. When anybody ingests caffeine, your body breaks it down into three compounds, one of which is paraxanthine. So that's a scientific name for it. And the cool thing about paraxanthine, it has all of the benefits that you typically associate with caffeine and none of the pitfalls. So it's been isolated and then used for formulation by Infinity. Infinity is the trademark of the company that's isolated paraxanthine and for brands like MTE to use. So an amazing product because it gives us crazy focus, so, in terms of like cognition under duress, memory recall, executive functioning. Some of the clinicals on this have just been through the roof. Like one of my favorite things about MTE is the focus. It also gives you smooth energy. There's no jitters, there's no crash. It's just sort of, there's no real rise either. It's just sort of, I took an MTE and I just feel great. I call it like a euphoric motivational energy. It's just, you kind of just works in the background and then it just flutters away hours later. There's no you don't even know when it, came and went, which is what we always sort of aspired to, like having something level you up and you're like, oh my God, I didn't sign up for that. It felt like a roller coaster. You're like, holy shit, it didn't look this high when I, from the ground, right. We didn't want to formulate that. I love that about it. And it doesn't habituate, which I think is really important because caffeine obviously does. Caffeine as a full molecular structure habituates. So you need more and more to get the same effect unless you fast from it or reset. So incredible nootropic. We paired it with Siberian ginseng. So our adaptogenic profile, there's 3 adaptogens in there. It's maca, ashwagandha, Siberian ginseng. And we put 3 in there because adaptogens in my world, that's sort of my kryptonite is stress and the way I respond to stress. So I wanted sort of a hybrid that could help energize. Like maca is an adaptogen, but also is really known for sort of revving you up and can kind of, if you need it, will give you that lift. Whereas Siberian ginseng, ashwagandha, Siberian ginseng and ashwagandha are sort of more for mood, sleep, and then also, allowing your body to adapt to the stressors more readily, particularly Siberian ginseng. Because adaptogens come from Russia. I mean, that's their origin is a Russian space program.
I didn't know that.
And, and the OG is Siberian ginseng, right? Siberia, Russia, the whole thing. So, and they really used it for soldiers who were under constant stress. And so they needed to wind down more rapidly and have less, kind of reduce the highs and reduce the lows and kind of keep you moderated. So you didn't burn out when you needed to go into battle again, or even during training for Olympics and things like that, you could kind of go in and perform better without, again, the crashes and the peaks and valleys. So the adaptogenic profile, wildly important to us. And then the final piece of this was the superfoods, right? So the chief among them is saffron, which is, we were talking about earlier, just an incredible product. If it weren't so expensive, I'm convinced saffron would be the most popular herb supplemented with in the world. It's just, you look at the clinical studies on the saffron we use at 28 milligrams, it's reduction in depression, reduction in anger, confusion is 4-5x placebo, which is, it's like borderline showing levels that prescription drugs are. I'm in no way telling you this is a prescription drug. I'll get in trouble for that. But you look at the clinical studies. This is you get beyond that, and and those levels, and it becomes a sedative, right? I mean, like at some point. So, that's how powerful saffron is, and in its clinical studies, and it's also improves sleep at night, more quicker to REM, less restfulness, waking up more refreshed. And then, recent studies have come out about it's actually helping with menopause symptoms now, including the physical manifestations, heat flashes, things like that. So like crazy powerful ingredient. And then we paired that also with red spinach and, amaranth and spirulina.
Well, let's stay on saffron for a moment here, especially the depression piece. I think that really resonates with me personally and a lot of people listening to this podcast. I know depression is right there. Anxiety and depression are the number 2 mental health disorders, according to the WHO, right? Yeah. So we can all relate to this, especially in the past 5 years, et cetera, et cetera. So would someone need to go out on their own and get saffron in addition to MT, or is the amount that's in one daily scoop of MT enough to really make a difference with depression?
The latter. So MTE, we looked at, so that's the other thing you kind of asked about, like the ingredients, how you chose them. So we looked at different things, mood and what a mood boost. And then we looked at clinical studies to back these up, and then found them, and then we formulated in those amounts. So like all the things I just mentioned to you for saffron,
28 milligrams.
28 milligrams. So that's, I'll give you one guess how many milligrams of saffron we have in MT. 28.
28, yeah. Per scoop, right?
Per serving, yeah.
Yeah, serving, yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So it's so you're getting that benefit in saffron, and then we're also you said anxiety. It's funny you said that, because that's one of the main reasons we have the combo of GABA and theanine in there, is because I love them together, and our formulators, obviously, and on their advice, talked about that as well. Because a lot of times people associate, wait a minute, more than energy, it has a stimulation with paraxanthine, but that oftentimes can trigger anxiety, or I associate that with anxiety. And it was important for us to try to mitigate that to the degree in which it's possible. One way we did that was by not using caffeine, right? And using a derivative of caffeine instead. And number 2 is having sort of that mitigation with GABA, theanine, and even saffron to some degree. So yeah, it's like a friend of mine has pretty debilitating anxiety, and she loves MTE because she's like, it gives me that, I don't get any of that, gives me that, calms me down, and I feel smooth, is her word, throughout the day. So that was important to us, because the reason I called it more than energy is because if you're energized, but you're riddled with anxiety, and you don't even want to leave the house, or you have brain fog so bad, you can't focus for over a minute, right? Or you're terribly depressed, or you name it. What's the point of energy, right? Like, I wanted to feel good and thrive, and to me that's like having a good mood, being able to focus, being able to do something with this energy, right? Being healthy, having good gut health, feeding my good bacteria, getting good rest at night. That to me was what we wanted to put together, not something that was just like something in isolation where we're going to silo you.
Mm-hmm. Hey, it's Sam. Can I share something real quick that I think might actually help you? If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions, like you're doing all the right things, yet you still feel off, it's not because you're broken. Most of us were never taught how to feel in a way that actually helps us heal. That's why I created Breath Club, a free community where I guide weekly breathwork sessions to help you regulate your nervous system, process emotions, and return to clarity. We use something called the 90-second reset, a simple, science-backed practice that shows how fast emotions shift when you allow yourself to feel them fully. You'll get access to live calls, a community, and on-demand breathwork exercises to reset anytime. No pressure, just an invitation to feel safe in your body again. Links in the show notes if you want to join us. I love it. I love it. Such a huge fan of this. And as we're talking about more in energy, is there a specific time of day that you would recommend people take it?
It's funny. It's a question I get a lot. I take it late morning. I love it for MTE. For me, it's like my superpower for focus. Like I call it my limitless powder. Right?
Right.
I just like, I'll get 3 hours of work done in like a half hour. I'm just like dialed in. And then knowing also I'm getting 4 grams of fiber and feeding my gut health and, getting that saffron that's going to, lift my mood and do all the things. My wife takes it early afternoon, right after lunch. She replaced her afternoon coffee with it. Incidentally, she hasn't had a coffee in, 8 months at this point. But initially, she replaced her afternoon coffee. She'd have her morning coffee, get through the day, lunch, and then replaced the afternoon espresso with this. Others right out of bed, right? Yeah. So it doesn't break a fast. There's no gluten, right? I mean, there's no sugar. There's 10 calories, most of which come from 4 grams of fiber. So it's clean in that sense. I mean, my only recommendation is I wouldn't take it right before you want to go to bed, even though it is. I mentioned it's smooth and sort of works in the background. It does have that energy component to it that, it's probably not your nighttime potion. Like I would probably cut it off. I don't know. I've taken them as late as 3-4 in the afternoon and slept fine. It has a shorter half-life than caffeine. So that's a positive.
What about you mentioned it's helpful menopause. Which ingredient is that? Was that saffron?
Saffron, yeah.
Okay. What about like women that are either pregnant or breastfeeding? Safe for them?
No, afraid not.
Which ingredient, or is it a few of them that makes it not?
It's a controversial because some people will tell you to seek out an ingredient when you're breastfeeding or pregnant, and others will tell you to avoid it like the plague. And so we have to take. I mean, sometimes you're governed by lawyers.
Yes. Totally.
It's a few.
And then another question I have is like, GABA is a supplement that I've been supplementing with for a number of years, not every day, of course, but before I go to sleep, take a little bit of GABA. It helps you with sleep and recovery, all of that. Now, it's interesting that like something like this, or just caffeine in general, right? We all know, like, don't take it later in the day. It's going to keep you up. Why is it, like, just getting into the science a little bit more, that you can take something that's going to help you with sleep in the morning and that doesn't make you sleepy right away?
Yeah. So just to go back to the saffron quickly. So it helps promote more restful sleep once you're asleep, but it doesn't help you go to sleep. So that's sort of the distinction. And the same thing with ashwagandha is known to help sleep quality. We don't use ashwagandha in the volumes that are commensurate with some of those studies, but nonetheless, it does, tailwind higher quality sleep and boosted mood. And then the same thing with GABA and theanine. When it's in a cocktail like this, 10 different ingredients, it's not going to make you sleepy or tired then, but it also doesn't entirely mitigate the stimulation of the paraxanthine. So that's the neat thing about the formula, is that they're all working in concert, and it's been very thoughtfully put together, where, because not only are they, hey, does it play well with others, but it also in what amounts. I think that's the real important thing. So the saffron, that's in your system and it accumulates over time. That's just a nighttime thing. But some of the things like GABA is more for mood modulation during the day.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I really like this stuff. I've been using it for a while. Like I mentioned, there was a period of time where I would use it in the morning just and I'd mix it with apple cider vinegar. So I'm doing like a double
Cool.
dose of gut health,
Yeah,
And
totally.
speaking of gut health, like I was even talking to my brother and his wife about this. It was just Father's Day at the time of recording. We were talking about his gut, but how does this specifically help with your gut?
Well, dude, I mean, like I'll answer that in just a second, but I'll just tell you, like, I'm obsessed with gut health right now. Right?
Oh,
Like,
cool.
I just feel like it all sort of starts there, right? Like for me, it's a good night's sleep, and then gut health, right? And I feel like, just to go down the rabbit hole, somebody the other day was talking about GABA, and they're like, well, how can GABA be, brain modulating when it doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier? And I was like, that's the power of the gut, right? I mean, that's the second brain, right? I mean, it just and the immune modulation that comes out of your gut now. I mean, more and more studies are showing that all begins in the gut, and it's just, I think it's so wildly important. And so we were thrilled when we had the chance to put chicory root in there, which is a prebiotic, has 4 grams of fiber, which is 14 or 15%. I can't remember which one, but let's call it 15% of your daily fiber intake, suggested that fiber intake in a supplement. I mean, it's like, when's the last time that happened, right? And the prebiotics are wildly important because they're feeding the probiotics, which I think is really important because, probiotics are billions of dollars of an industry in America alone. And meanwhile, we had, there's the argument of, I don't know if you've ever gone down this rabbit hole, but I've never really understood it, admittedly. It's like, do they need to be refrigerated because they're live cultures, or do they not? And if they're so delicate they need to be refrigerated, how are they going to survive once they hit all the gut and the acid, but this stuff, it's like, I've never really understood it. But the one thing I do understand is that there are billions of bacteria and virus and mold and everything else in our stomach, right? Like, I heard the other day, to this day, the world's largest supercomputer cannot calculate all the different variabilities of the organisms in our guts. Like,
Wow.
Which is because it's billions and billions of and it obviously wildly dynamic, right? Based on all sorts of different factors, not the least of which is food and what you're putting in. So having all the probiotics in your gut, and then sending the prebiotic is effectively food for them. So, to oversimplify it. And so I thought, no science, not talking to scientists, just working on pure logic, let me send my good bacteria food. It makes a lot of sense to me. And then obviously we started vetting it and talking to people, and they're like, yeah, you're on the right track. Like, you're oversimplifying it per usual, but that's a pretty rudimentary way of explaining it and understanding it, and there's merit to it. And so we were like, when we had the opportunity to do it, we jumped at it. And now, the other cool thing is, I'm like bouncing around here a little bit, but you're getting the fiber, which kind of helps you feel a little bit more full. It's feeding the probiotics in your gut. The paraxanthine, one of the cool things about paraxanthine is you burn more calories than you would if you didn't have paraxanthine. So you're burning 100 extra calories per usage of paraxanthine per day on MT, and helps to reduce hunger for up to 90 minutes after use. So you have all these things going on in your gut that are sort of, unrelated to energy or focus or anything else, but just, the gut health and the ability to sort of moonshot that into feeling good and thriving. It just all jived and gelled with our mission and why we got into this business in the first place.
Yeah, it's awesome. Nootropics aren't anything new, right? It's been an emerging industry for a number of years now, and people are just getting more interested. But when I saw this product hit the market and I heard about it, and again, shout out to Josh Trent and his podcast. I mean, he's always recommending like the latest and greatest. And I think you did a collaboration with maybe Ben Greenfield too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these biohackers, right? They know what's up, right? So they introduce something. It's like, all right, let me check this thing out. And it's like, wow, I have not seen something like this, because a lot of times we're just seeing like the same Me Too stuff, in terms of the different products, or, the way things are being marketed now. It's so confusing for the everyday consumer that is not interested in biohacking at all, or like, that's a bad way of saying it, but more in the field, I guess would be
Yeah,
a
no,
better way.
yeah.
Yeah. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife, what's her name again? And his son Patrick, they have a bar company. Are you familiar with that one?
Mm-hmm.
My,
Yeah.
my mom tells me, sorry mom, but she tells me about these bars, how like they're good for like your brain health or whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, let me get one. And she goes, oh no, it's like for the aging process when you're older. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I go to their website and look at the ingredients. I go, Mom, these are the same ingredients I've been telling you about for years, right? And you
Yeah.
look at something, the way it's like marketed and branding, and it's just like,
Mhm.
we just need to look at the ingredients and understand what's in them, right?
Totally. That's the challenge, right? I mean, one of the things when we built this is I was like, look, let's just kind of make this a Trojan horse, right? Where like whatever you come for the energy and stay for the gut health and the better sleep at night and the focus, or whatever. Like that was kind of what we want to do, because you only get one chance to message, and people like, here's like a really interesting story I heard the other day in terms of like psychological behavior and things like that, is the more, so like, here's a great use case on the prescription drug commercials we've all seen on TV, right? And they're like, yeah, it's like some couple walking through a meadow or whatever. And they're like, and if, and use of whatever can cause, headache and stomach ache and, amputation and stroke and heart attack and, and they just go to this long list.
Suicidal ideation. They say that with a smile on their voice.
Yeah.
It makes me disgusted. Yeah.
No, totally. And well, what I learned is they do. That's by design. I mean, it's obviously to some degree they have to disclose some of them, but not all of them. A lot of times they're not making them up, but they'll give you even the one that like one person out of the test got a headache. They will absolutely throw that in, because people tune out after a while. They're just like, it's just human nature for whatever reason. They're like, yeah, it's a long list. None of those are happening to me. But if they said, take this drug, but you do run the risk of dropping dead, full stop, everybody would just focus on that one side effect, and it would be a whole different conversation. So that works in the reverse. If you sit here and go out and tell people, yeah, we created this supplement, it's awesome, it does boost your mood, it can lower your depression, it can lower anger, it can lower confusion, it can boost your gut health, it has fiber in it, increases executive functioning, cognition, energy, sleep at night. And people are like, bullshit, like nothing's doing, you know what I mean? And they've like checked out and they're no longer interested. So you have to kind of pick your message. And ours, one of the things we did over the first couple of years is we weren't sure exactly what we wanted to lean into. We knew what we'd created and we knew what was important to us as founders. We weren't sure what was important to the masses. And as we combed through at the time, I think we had a couple hundred reviews. It's called 200 reviews, just easy conversation. Like 196 of them mentioned energy. And, we were like, all right, that's it. It's obviously that's important to people. People are waking up tired. They're stressed. And the stress and the lack of focus and the sleep deprivation, all those things are leading to more and more lethargy and less, obviously the sleep deprivation, but even the stress, the constant stimulation, the phone, all these things, social media, the alerts. We're constantly depleting dopamine, in fight or flight, even if we don't know it. And it's making us more tired. We need more rest. We're actually getting less. And so, that's when we started leaning into it's MTE. It's more than energy, but obviously it does have energy in the name. And then, hopefully we'll get you in other ways and you'll start feeling better, and you may not even attribute it to us. That's fine. Like as long as you're feeling good. I mean, that's why we got in this game, is to help people thrive and be best.
Yeah, and I know you guys say too, like, hey, you can still drink your cup of coffee,
Yeah.
or however, we're not saying don't drink your coffee.
Yeah.
And one of the benefits is a lot of the people that are working with your product are actually getting off of caffeine because they realize that they don't need it anymore. Just for the listeners, like, could you talk about some of the downfalls of being dependent on coffee and caffeine?
Yeah. I mean, well, first, let me just tell you this. When we were meeting with the biochemist who introduced paraxanthine to us, he said, just try it. For a week, certainly for a month, you're not going to want caffeine anymore. And I was like, yeah. And by the way, like, I couldn't care less about caffeine. At one point, I probably went a decade without touching caffeine. I mean, it's never been a big part of my life. But I was like, but now I like this morning I had an Americano for breakfast. It was glorious, and then, so like MT is about adding to your routine, right? This is not about, we're not asking you to take anything away. We're asking, not asking, but we built it to add to your routine. One simple thing like this can boost all of those things for you. That's the important message. I think when people start getting into like, whoa, don't you try to take my coffee away or take this away. Like, that's not what this is about. This is about adding to your routine and then giving you copious amounts of benefits that are going to allow you to thrive and feel best. So, in terms of the coffee, I don't make any bones about it. Like, I was just on with Dave Asprey last week, and the first question he asked me when we sat down for his podcast was, "Why do you hate coffee?" Because he's a big coffee guy.
These guys what's his new coffee line? Danger or something?
Bulletproof Danger.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't hate coffee. Like, we just, the absence of caffeine in MTE doesn't imply a hatred for caffeine elsewhere, right? I just thought it was important to achieve some of the things that we wanted to achieve. We could do it better without caffeine in there, right? Like, as we talked about, like the stress and sleep at night, things like that. But I will tell you, having qualified it like that, caffeine, like a couple things, it can spike epinephrine, which can lead to anxiety and some things like that. It has a longer half-life, so it sticks around, can inhibit and by virtue of that can impact your sleep. It contributes to a release of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, the stress response that a lot of times I'm trying to battle, right? Particularly in today's world in which we live. And it habituates, which is why I've never really loved it for regularity. If I take it intermittently, I'm like, whoo, that's like a hit. It's like a roller coaster. But you take it every morning, you need more and more and more to get that same hit, if you will. And I don't love that for, with anything. So I think those are sort of the pitfalls. And then, and then you get into some other stuff in terms of, gut, things like that, where it can upset your stomach, what have you. But really, for me, it's the only thing I really hate is energy drinks. I think that's poison. But a nice coffee in the morning, or whatever, like, I'm all in. I was in Europe for a couple of weeks. I was just like, I was loving it. Espressos at lunch, and just like, I love it.
That sounds fun. Nice. I haven't been there yet. Yeah, energy drinks, that takes me back to college, like 15 years ago. I was a campus rep for Monster energy drinks, and we lived above the most popular bar in town, and we always had Ragers, and we'd wake up and just like 30 cans of Monsters just like half open, and just that smell of the toxicness. Like, none of us drank it. Like, I was the rep for that stuff back then, and it was fun, and it was great for like chasing as a chaser and things like that. Oh man, I can't even imagine how bad that is for you to use energy drinks like that with alcohol, but back in the day.
Have you heard the Liquid Death story? Are they sort of
what part of the story? Pause. You're holding your breath again, aren't you? Most high performers don't need more doing. They need a nervous system reset. I'm Sam Kabert, and I'm a keynote speaker and nervous system coach, helping people just like yourself to reset from burnout and return to clarity. I work with organizations and audiences ready to move beyond burnout and into embodying clarity. My keynotes blend storytelling, subconscious reprogramming, and live breathwork experiences that get people out of their heads and back into their lives. If you're planning a conference, retreat, or leadership event and want something that doesn't just inspire, but actually transforms, head to the link in the show notes. Let's make your next event unforgettable.
Well, I'm going to butcher it, but my rudimentary recollection of it is one of the guys was working on the I think it was Monster, the concert tour, and he noticed all the bands were pouring it out and pouring water into the can and drinking water out of it on stage. And that's where the idea came of like a water in a can is, like that was sort of one of the light bulb moments. So, which like that tracks. I don't think you could, I don't know. I mean, I know it's big business. They do they're killing it. I think Red Bull alone did like $12 billion last year in sales. I mean, wow. Like it's out there, but look, maybe it has its place. I don't know. It's not for me, but I can tell you if it does. Like for me, I want something that helps me feel good, right? And just feeling energized, I don't think is the answer anymore. I think feeling great is the answer, and that's what I wanted to pursue, and that's what we created. And if you're like full disclosure, if you're looking to just like melt your face, you got a half hour of sleep last night, like you might be better off with the Monster or Red Bull. But like if you're looking for something a little bit more foundational and full function, and certainly we include stimulation in there with the paraxanthine because it's important. People are tired and they do need energy, but we wanted to give you that in conjunction with a wider net of benefits and ability to use it and just foundational health. So, and if that's the goal, then I think, that's the cool thing about MTA.
Yeah, and for anyone listening that does drink Red Bull or Monster or anything like Rockstar, any of those, please email me and tell me why you listen to this podcast and drink that. And I'd love to have you on the show just to get a better understanding, because
totally interesting.
Yeah, I don't think there would be that many people, but you never know. And I'd love to just learn. And we were talking about before we hit record, I live in California. You're out there in Texas. Mm-hmm. I was just in Waco at the surf park there.
Yeah, dude.
Have you been there?
No, I was just in Mexico with a couple buddies of mine that are big surfers, and they're actually going to rent it out in October, and I'm gonna hit it up with them. So I'm super stoked. Was it as good as advertised?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, there ended up being lightning that day, so we got about 30-40 minutes of our hour-long session. We had to get out of the water, but it was dope. It was really cool. Well, the reason why I bring it up, it was totally different than what I expected or anything else, and it was. I would love to have that in my backyard, put it that way. Very cool. I'm super stoked to have the ocean in my backyard though. Anyways, while we're in the water, right? It's a man-made surf park. And I've been to like wakeboard cable parks and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's been a while, but you're just kind of sitting there waiting for your next wave. And I'm looking, and there's a big sign for, I don't know if it was Monster energy drinks or Rockstar. It was one of those two. And it said something about like either nootropics, adaptogens, or I don't remember, maybe it was ashwagandha. But I was sitting there being like, man, this is amazing. I had no idea that energy drink companies are like jumping on the bandwagon with nootropics. And we see a lot of this throughout different industries where it's like that main thing might not be the most healthy, right? But if it's reaching someone with now opening up their mind to adaptogens and nootropics or whatever it might be, that becomes like such a great bridge for that person to learn about that thing and then go actually move on and graduate from that bad energy drink to something cleaner, you know?
Dude, totally. It's like, you go through progressions, right? I mean, you grow up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like, this is kind of a little off topic a little bit, but I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. Like, I just turned 50, and we were at a volleyball tournament for our daughters, and we both had shorts on, and the tournament was running long, and when we were gonna, I was like, man, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go to dinner. And he was like, "You're gonna wear shorts to dinner? What are you, like 25 years old?" I was like, dude, I don't know. I still look at myself like I'm 25. He's like, well, you're not. Like kind of the growth, MTE it's funny you say that, because it's sort of like, the thinking man's energy, the grown up energy type of thing, where it's a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more advanced, and there's more to it. And then I'll just go back quickly. Whatever it was, Rockstar, whoever it is that had that sign up, it's my guess is it was about nootropics, because the world's largest nootropic in terms of consumption, caffeine. So they're putting a spin on it and kind of trying to ride that wave, I suspect. Forgive the pun here, since you saw it in the wave pool, but that wouldn't surprise me. It's it's also why you see some of these like healthy energies that just throw theanine in there, because theanine is why tea usually doesn't give you the jitters and crash, because theanine is in tea leaves, but it's not in coffee. So the people throw it in with the caffeine and say, okay, it doesn't give you jitters or crashes, there's some merit to that, but that it stops there. And which is why we just kept going with adaptogens and the mood and everything I just articulated. So.
Well, it's really cool to see, because, we don't know what we don't know, right? And then we see this thing, a certain percentage of us are going to get curious about what that thing is. We're going to learn about it. Then we're going to see something like MTE and associate that with like that Rockstar energy drink that had that thing and be like, whoa, this is just like that, but this seems even better. Let me check that out now that I know about it, which is really cool. And that goes to further the mission of like making the world a more healthy place. So I think it's fantastic,
Totally, dude. Yeah, totally. I couldn't I'm in. Like, if they're going to spread the word about nootropics and get people hip to that, and because people will graduate eventually and level up 100%. So I think there's room for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jeff, this has been so much fun. I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you and learn more about the origin story and also the ingredients. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think is important to touch on in terms of what you guys are offering?
No, man, we like, it's a pretty deep dive on what we're doing, and like deeper than usual, honestly. And like, I love talking about the formula. I know it can give people tired heads sometimes, but I think it's, I try to keep it light, because, when I got into this, like, I think we talked about the origin story, and obviously I've always supplemented, and I've always kind of, like Josh and I talked about this actually, where supplements to me have always been from like going from good to great, right? As opposed to like taking me from suboptimal and just crawling back to like, oh, now I can get through the day. That to me that's not a supplement. Supplementing is going from good to great. And so, as we wanted to create it, we also wanted to be like super approachable, and, not have people like to have to go down this rabbit hole of like, okay, wait, I don't even know what a nootropic is, never mind like what types of nootropics are, right? And so the reason I say this is, when I started it, I didn't know a ton about nootropics. I'd heard of them, of course, but if somebody at one point was like, yeah, I heard, this is years ago, like Elon is just like, he's just always doing nootropics. The guy's just like so hooked on nootropics, it's wired into nootropics. And I was like, I know what that means, but like, what does that mean? Is he taking a bunch of coffee, or like, I didn't know what it really meant. So, making it, I was always like, I was never afraid of supplements. You know what I mean? So like, I think to make it approachable was important to us. So I'm happy to kind of talk about it surface level, dig deep a little bit, help people sort of understand, whether or not you know what a nootropic is or the dictionary definition of it, like, doesn't matter. If you kind of understand, hey, I feel good, here's why. I always wanted that. If I'm going to put something in my body, certainly with regularity, kind of want to understand what it's meant to do, why it's doing it, how it's good for me, what kind of. The other thing is, like, last thing, I'll just tie a bow on it, is there's so much stuff out there that's not made by founders, right? I mean, like this, like, I'm a real person. My family drinks this, from my parents to my son and everybody in between, and we made it there's a reason we don't have sucralose, because I refuse to put it in my body, right? Like, so, there's very real stories, and everything was purposefully done by a real person who, surrounded himself with a real team of people who were like, have your best interest at heart. So it's like, it's funny, you get the praise, and people send in emails, and you're like, man, that's why we get out of bed in the morning. And then you get, somebody will just write something in, and you're like, there's no way that person wrote something in negative that knows this is, like, they wouldn't talk to another human being like this. They just think it's a nameless, faceless brand, or somebody out pixie dusting it, or, whatever. But, I guess my point is, this is a passion project from somebody who's passionate about feeling best. I mean, I'm obsessed with feeling good and the right way, right? Not a Band-Aid, but foundationally, and treating the symptom and the cause of feeling good. And that obsession led to MTE. Like, I'm thrilled to talk about it, and I'm like super grateful you gave me the platform and like, let me just babble for an hour on MTE, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime. It's great. I love learning more about it as well. And, it reminds me of when a few years ago, I found out that I had low testosterone. I was working with a homeopathic doctor, and I know Joke had, like, I don't know, maybe 20 different supplements. And it was so hard to just track them all, let alone take them all of it, right? So just to be able to put, not that what this is doing is helping with testosterone, but we could get into regenerative health, right? And this is helping with regenerative health. So having something where it's like all of these ingredients, like you mentioned, the all-star cast, is so helpful. Because I know for myself these days, like, I'm barely supplementing. Maybe like the traditional supplements with like protein or is it creatine? I'm starting to take a little creatine.
Yeah.
My buddy's Man Dust, MTE. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it, which feels great.
Same. I used to walk through the airport with like a bag of supplements.
Yeah.
And same thing. It's funny you say that. I don't know why, because you're not the first person who's told me that lately. People, I think they're trying to like sort of consolidate the stack, if you will. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm the same thing. I do a nitric oxide enhancer. That's about it. And then I do some minerals, and then and MTE. And then protein powder after I resistance train. But yeah, dude, like the days of 500 pills and all that jazz are like, it's a lot.
Yeah. Traveling with that many supplements was a beast, and all the different Ziploc bags, so you didn't have to carry the containers for the capsules. Well, Jeff, this has been incredible. Thank you again. We'll have to do it again. For everyone listening, if you're ready to get some MTE, go to the website. You can find the link in the show notes. Use coupon code SAM15 for 15% off. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing.
Dude, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. It was great.
Thanks so much for listening to the very end. I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as I did. I seriously love this stuff more than energy. Pretty much what I've been doing the past couple of weeks, at least now at the time of this recording, is I wake up in the morning, And pretty much first thing, I drink some water. And then after that, I make water mixed with some electrolytes, mixed with my packet of More Than Energy and some apple cider vinegar. And I am on my way. And I just love it so much. So if you want to try More Than Energy, go to the show notes and you can get your 15% discount. I'll see you on the next episode of the Soul Seeker Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the very end. I hope you dug this podcast just as much as I enjoyed it. If you got anything at all, please, if you could just do me a favor and leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to this podcast, it helps the show grow. So thank you for considering to leave a review. If you want to go deeper with Soltara or Elan, you can find the links to connect with them in the show notes. And if you want to work with me, the best way to work with me, the easiest way to work with me is the free way, and that's by joining the Breath Club. The link to the Breath Club is in the show notes. And also know that I'm available for one-on-one support, that is coaching and guidance, as well as keynotes and breathwork journeys for conferences and events. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode of The Soul Seeker.